All right, I played this thing. Which one is it? And I'm the one editing this, right? So it's like I'm talking to myself. No, not that one. Not that one. Oh God, please let this one be it. Please let. Is it? I hope so.
We are killing it. Hi, everybody. I am Marie Brownhill, and I am here with Menhill Eunice, Will West, and Robin Alyssa. And welcome to Trekker's Delight FTP, where we are going to fight the patriarchy. And this week, we are going to talk about the Quickening, or as I like to refer to it, an entire episode devoted to sheer fucking hubris. So, Robin, our synopsis queen, take us in.
All right, so this episode starts with the very key and very pivotal scene of everybody on the bridge of DS9 talking to Quark. Now, Quark does something key here in this episode that has ramifications throughout the entire rest of DS9. He makes advertisements with his face on them.
I'm not even gonna lie, I literally have, on order for my Christmas present is actually like one of the posters that is signed by Armin Shimerman.
You.
I'm so excited.
At any rate, Worf, of course, is mad because he orders a prune juice and it has Quark's face on it, and obviously he can't have Quark's face on his food. It's just unsettling to the Klingons and the Klingon Empire, the face of a Ferengi. At any rate, so we move on to the side story of this episode. Bashir, Kira, and Dax are on a mission in the Gamma Quadrant. They hit upon a message from a distant planet. It's a distress message. It says, "Help me, help me, help me." So, of course, as we are Starfleet and Bajoran, we go to the mysterious message and help. We come across a planet. I believe the name of the planet, I don't have Memory Alpha open, so I apologize. The name of the planet is Someone Help Me, Someone Help Me, Someone Help Me.
Teflon, maybe?
Yeah,
because it's the Teflon blank that they all have.
Some Gamma Quadrant planet in the middle of Jim Hadar space needs help. They come across the planet to investigate the distress signal, and of course, we find that the main topic of this episode, the entire planet is infected with a virus called the Blight. Everybody has weird red veins all over their face. Everybody, no one knows when, no one knows how, but will die of the Blight in this episode. Now, of course, because again, we are Starfleet and we must help, Bashir decides to stay on the planet even though he is warned after seeing someone die horribly of the Blight to help cure these wonderful, wonderful people who have been affected. So Bashir, of course, does his magic Starfleet science to find a cure. That does not work. People still die of the Blight. The main person he is helping, as you can see in the photo that is on the screen, is this woman and her baby. And the woman, unfortunately, dies of the Blight because he does not find a cure for the Blight But in his magic sciencing, he finds an inoculation. So now on this planet, future children who were born will not have the blight. We go home. Captain Cisco gives Bashir a pat on the back, says gold star, and we fade out. And that is the episode. But
Other than it's really depressing, I have many. But I think the best place to start here is talking about hubris and why it isn't so incredibly arrogant of Julian Bashir to think that he's going to be able to cure this. And for that, we're going to love this lady. For those playing at home, you're going to be able to make a drinking game out of this. Like, take a drink every time
that comes up, you have to take a shot.
We promise that you might get alcohol poisoning by the end of this.
Yes, you will turn into your mirror universe self.
oh my gosh. You don't want mirror universe.
You don't want mine. I'll take this.
You want
So anyway, for the actual science part of it, we are going to our resident evolutionary biologist who can tell us a little bit more about what the heck Bashir was doing with his magic gizmos.
Thank you, Marie. Thanks, Robin. That was really great. Just in the episode, he beams down with Jetsia, and they bring a bunch of equipment. They set up a protein sequencer. They're looking at viral load. They are trying to sequence the actual viral genome so that they and isolate it. So they take some tissue samples, and as for the magic of it, right? Like he wants to figure out the viral life cycle. He wishes he had a little bit more tissue samples. He goes out. And so this actually lends itself to that hubris that you're talking about. He just swaggers out into this like planet.
What?
Every single time.
It's
every time.
He's just got this like, and let's also keep in mind this is technically first contact. It's a distress signal, but it's the first time the Federation has met this planet. I just looked it up real quick. It's in the Telpin system. Teplin system, but they don't mention the planet. It's like a planet in the Teplin system. So it's under.
I'm assuming it's Tepla because
Tepla,
the blight is called the Teplin blight. So I think it's significant that we never hear the name of this planet. By the way,
interesting.
I really am looking forward to.
Yeah,
it
it's
is
not.
the
I pulled up the
Teplin
movie
blight,
alpha. It's not in there.
Yeah, no, I think it's
Teplin blight.
significant. Like, I mean, if we're going to talk about this,
they are called the Teplin.
Yeah, like if we're going to talk about this in terms of like arrogance, I mean, Bashir doesn't even bother to find out who they are.
He just does it.
Right.
Yeah.
He's like, all right.
This is
brought up. Yeah.
But I don't want to steal from Mandy's time because I think
it's okay. That's really it. No.
I think it's really interesting to talk about like the actual underpinnings of what he's doing. Also, everybody, I would like to introduce you to one of my other co-hosts. Her name is Maddie. You might see her tail. It's the joys of working from home, guys.
For
it's great.
For a second, I thought it was grudge.
I mean, she also has a thyroid problem.
Oh.
No, she really doesn't. She has a food problem.
So we come back to Jadzia, trying to help and trying to, she makes a joke, about Bashir. She talks to Ikoria, the pregnant lady, and she's like, "Just have a seat. They like to make you wait." This is like a nice dig. There's Ikoria. Yeah, there she is. She's like, "Are you really a doctor? Can you really help? I know this lady in this other province. She makes this thing that helps with the pain, but I can't make the trip because so far, like, it's just a sad state of like this ruined civilization. My goodness,
y'all. I mean, it's 2 steps away from "Please, sir, I want some more."
They've become almost a death cult, right? They talk about how they worship death. They've become it's like it's someone in their life, and so the blight has done. It's been 200 years of this omnipresent, inborn, basically disease. So even though it's a virus, the life cycle of it doesn't spare anyone on the planet. In a way, it's effectively inborn. So, but yet the aliens, Bashir and Jizia, are not susceptible to it. It's only native to the population. We find out also that it's the Dominion who did this. Don't stand up to the Dominion, right? And here we go again, mentioning the hubris of Bashir.
Shut.
Which means that yeah, there you go. He's just walks in there and he's like, we'll do it in a week. We'll do it and so forth. And so just to finish that arc, I don't mean to just meander my way through this. He creates an antigen. He sequences the protein sequence. He figures out the reverse of it. But what he doesn't realize is when he inoculates or gives this out, he gives Ikoria a hypospray, like a magical hypospray going around. Psh, psh, psh. And he says to her, should we tell her what's in that it's possibly the cure, which gets into some problems of informed consent, which you can get to later. What they don't realize is that the antigen in the bloodstream reacts to EM radiation, so all of their equipment has now exacerbated the thing. There's a mutational issue now. The virus is now and it's cumulative, so even if they shut off all the stuff, the actual accumulating mutations just kills them like dead. Ikoria survives because she hasn't quickened, she hasn't taken, and all the antigen has been taken up by her child through the placental barrier. So even though she's quickened, they realize that the child who has been inoculated, basically as a preventative measure now, rather than as a cure, you'll now have a generation of the population that will be free of the blight for the first time in 200 years. So a lot of the themes actually.
Annie?
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 I think we lost him. So
No.
No, Annie.
The vagaries of technology, my friends. The vagaries of technology.
No, because this is literally my reaction right now.
No.
Oh wait, is he back? No, it's okay. It's okay, guys. Okay, so sometimes when you're doing like virtual podcasts, stuff like this happens, and we just roll along with it. But he's our guy. He's our scientist. So until he comes back.
So I kind of want to talk a little bit about where he was going, which are the themes.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And a lot of this gets built into this entire process. And,
right.
I joke about the sheer fucking hubris. Cue the lady. But it really is a lot of hubris. Early on in the episode, one of the first things we talk about, right, is that on this random other planet, they were able, like Julian and Bashir, like Julian and Jadzia and everybody were able to like beam down to the planet, and within an hour had basically sequenced this genome, figured out what they were doing. Man, we're just dropping like flies tonight.
Oh, well, I guess it's just me and you now.
I know. We're gonna have a party.
Let's have a party.
We're gonna have a party.
The sheer hubris of us thinking that something would.
We were going. Wait. Here we go.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah, this is a thing. Anyway, so going back to that, so Will was able to come back magically.
I'm literally just on a mission to get more photos, and it kicks me off. I feel insulted. Restream, you and I need to have a conversation. Okay,
we were just gonna go without you. Like,
I mean, for real, it's just like
the show must go on, right?
It's just like, is this the Valkyries? Where did all the men go? Right? Like,
I mean, he does fight the patriarchy. I gotta say.
I mean, hey,
it is.
Work it
He
out.
fights the patriarchy.
But anyway, Mano be back, and I'm back. Please continue. Come.
Yes.
But I mean, he talks about being able to do this in like an hour and then fix the problem within a day, right?
Yeah.
And we know going into this that, like, yes, Starfleet seems to have, and the Federation seems to have, this magical technology, but it's still kind of impressive that he thought he was going to be able to do this.
I thought so too.
And we all know how this works, right? Like, we've seen 1.5 million episodes of Star Trek. They beam down, they go interact with the locals. They're like, oh, we have the magic technology. Here we go. Right here. Look at him. He's even showing the magic technology with the tricorder.
He's like, look,
I
can
know.
fix your arm. My magic laser. I can fix your arm.
Right. They go, they beam down, they have the magic technology, they fix the problem, they beam back up, and, you know, basically teach the locals how to be, you know, whatever. And so it's very obvious that Bashir is along for that ride, coming into the Quickening. However, the Quickening is not along for that ride, because what the Quickening is actually doing is it's using Bashir himself as a metaphor for colonialism as expressed by the Federation. Right? Because because he beams down, he starts this process. He doesn't even bother to learn the name of the planet. Right? He's like, hey, who are y'all? No, that never happens. It doesn't happen.
I just see a disease that's very deadly, and I want to help. And
I'm going to help, and I'm going to help you, even if you don't want my help.
Yes.
That is, I think, a very important part of this, is that he is going to do this whatever they want to do. Never mind that their entire culture has restructured itself around this blight and this plague.
And then not even considering, right, that this is something brought on by the Dominion, who up until this point we know is more technologically advanced than Starfleet in the populations in the Alpha Quadrant. So why in the world would he even think that, oh, a species that specifically knows how to genetically modify, genetically change codes, and to give people a deadly illness that has no cure? Why in the world does he think that with his little hypo spray, does he think that that's a good idea? And that those people won't then come back and try to harm that planet again?
Because he's he's from the Magic Federation. Like, I mean, none of this process is in his mind. And I actually think that this is a really good episode for Julian Bashir, frankly, because it's a very real rebalancing for him. Because this is the first time he fails. I mean, arguably, we can talk about like the pre-ganglionic fiber versus the post-ganglionic nerve nonsense until we're all blue in the face. You know, was it a real error? Was he like hamstringing himself to hide, you know, his genetic perfection, what have you? This is a real fail. He has promised these people a cure, and he cannot deliver. And Trevian, who serves as, you know, head healer, wise man, you know, whatever. I mean, I feel like this is really appropriate because I have a really awful cold, and we're talking about this episode.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's been another thing we could be talking about.
I mean, so Trevian actually looks at him and he says, you know, we were you, and we couldn't figure this out. We had the huge cities. We had the technological advances. We had space travel, and we couldn't figure it out. Why do you, Starfleet, think that you can do it? And in this wonderful kind of moment, Bashir blows him off. Just blows him off, and it's like, well, meh. I mean, I am Dr. Julian Bashir.
And that's when the guy threatens him, right? He's like, oh, people who promise to help end up wishing they had the blight, right?
And it just kind of spirals from there. And that's when we pick up, and this is when the imagery starts coming. All right, because this is when we pick up Ikoria, and Ikoria is very obviously positioned. She's shot. She's dressed. She's set up to be this Madonna. Like if you can pull her up, and we can see her again.
Okay, yeah. Let me see.
We can talk a little bit about about this, right? Almost down to the same color symbolism, because Mary often had a blue robe with red accents, and some of that, like, brief art history tidbit. Some of that had to do with the fact that during medieval times, blue was actually made by grinding up lapis lazuli, usually imported from the mountains of what is now Afghanistan. So they were grinding up a literal precious stone in order to create this pigment. So it was very much used only for the holiest of holies, or the wealthiest of wealthy, because it was just incredibly expensive. So that's why you see a lot of blue with for Mary in medieval art.
Right.
Because they were just underscoring how important she was. And the red in medieval art, like, I'm not sure where they were sourcing that in medieval times, but certainly in the colonial era, they were actually sourcing that red from, it was cochineal red, and it was coming actually from the American Southwest. Fun fact. It's ground up beetles.
Interesting.
So that's a detour. If you're ever on Jeopardy, I have now done you a favor.
Hey, we should make a Star Trek Jeopardy on this show, and give like the winner like a hug or something.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But if you look at Ikoria and you look at how she's positioned, you look at how she's shot, you look at all of that, I swear, we'll be funny in a minute. I just got to get this out before I forget it, because I'm old and also drinking. So.
That's so funny. Oh my god.
But literally everywhere she is, she's almost impossibly nice.
Right.
Almost impossibly gentle. She's already wearing colors that we're associating with, images of Mary that most of us in Western culture have seen a zillion and a half times. And she's pregnant. And she's pregnant, and the baby she ends up giving birth to is the first baby without the blight.
Ooh, bingo.
First person without sin. Yep.
So I feel like we have like sheer fucking hubris, layered on top of sheer fucking hubris, because not only do we have this whole colonial narrative that's going on, we also are now couching this foreign culture in very Judeo-Christian, Western European iconography.
I mean, yeah, she sacrifices herself literally for the baby, right? Like,
she does.
Prolongs her pain for weeks so she can have the baby. Even though she could go to Trevin and get the herbs that he gives and swim them into a peaceful death. Yeah.
Right. And I guess we should also possibly, head up for, trigger warnings of mention of suicide for this particular video, because that's a pretty significant part of their culture at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody goes, like, when they quicken, which is when the lesions on their face turn red, that's when things, the blight is now fatal, and it's in its final stages, and it's extraordinarily painful. And so what they do is they go to Trevian to ease their passing, because it's inevitable. And this is what Trevian does, is he tries to give them a peaceful death, and it becomes this really significant pillar of their culture. I mean, it's almost Egyptian, really. Like, they save up for their deaths.
Mm-hmm.
For that last great night before they take whatever it is that he gives them.
Mm-hmm.
That broke me too, just watching that scene, because it's like I knew what I was watching, but at the same time I didn't know what I was watching, if that makes any sense. It's like, wait a minute, are you guys like embracing death so much that it's almost cultish, right? Because I mean, I'm like, and in many ways, I understand how the Prime Directive was vastly violated in many different ways. Um, at the same time,
Prime Directive? What Prime Directive?
I know,
There
right?
was no Prime
But
Directive.
but at the same time, knowing Jadzia's character, well, knowing Dax's character, I'll say that, is a little surprising in my opinion, because not 2 seasons later. Anyway, here she is. Here we go. Here we are. Because not 2 seasons later, how did I get up here? Not 2 seasons later.
For the
she's
third
preaching-
time, not 2 seasons later.
I know, right? She's preaching to the other original Klingons from TOS. Y'all always go on about how it's a good day to die, but how about a good day to live? Like, and so, and she literally hangs up Starfleet for that episode herself. You know, she's like, you know what, I'm not an officer today. I gotta do what I gotta do, even though that funnel was made.
Right, I'm over here. I'm gonna take a leave of absence, and I'm gonna go be Klingon for like a fortnight. I'll be back.
Yeah.
Cheers.
They do need some Klingons in Fortnite, but but for real though. So that's why when I saw that and me knowing that Dax's behavior, it was a little surprising to me in a way. But every officer has had that moment where they have to hang up the badge just to do what they feel is right, even though there's a lot of moral implications that come with it.
I mean, I'm surprised with the exception of Kira. I was actually surprised with everybody's reaction when they found out what Bashir did. Yeah, even like Cisco at the end. I don't know. I was just expecting, because he's such of a, I'm gonna uphold, at least until I decide it doesn't make sense for me personally, I'm going to uphold the standards and the rules of the Federation. I thought he would have had a stronger reaction. I thought he would have, at the end of the episode, he would have come up and said something to Bashir along the lines of, yeah, you just royally ignored the Prime Directive. You ignored
You may or not have used it for toilet paper, just saying.
Yeah. Like, you just totally ripped that up, took a shit, and threw it away.
Man, he's over here like, I'm too nice to be on this episode.
Oh man! Just get on Black Track. I promise you.
Yeah, to be fair, I'm not even as bad as I am.
Like, we are literally on our best behavior right now.
But honestly, I think to your point, Robin, I think that's part of the colonialism, right? I mean, because even Cisco is kind of swallowing like this is the right thing to do. We have to go and take care of this problem. And again, whether they want him there or not.
Interesting.
Because they're pretty clear.
Bashir is a little white man's virgin, right?
Like she's her own me.
Mm-hmm.
Can you catch me up on how the Prime Directive was violated?
She inoculated. Bashir, in one of the ways, and where we can go more in depth. But one of the ways that is like red flag is like inoculating a patient without consent or knowledge in it, without it's even in it. Not to mention,
I think it's even more basic than that. I think it's Bashir should have hung up and left when they said so,
because they told him to leave.
Because they're not. I mean, they kind of wiggle wobble with this, right? Because the question is, if the culture has been decimated back to the Stone Age, right? They're technically pre-warp.
Yeah.
Which means that you can't influence their course
culture
of life,
and their course of, and you can't mess around with their culture or impose your own mores, and that's Angry Jadzia. And Angry Jadzia does in fact attempt to impose her mores on Trevian. That's who she's talking to right there. So that's really kind of where this is. And then you add on top of that the hubris. Everybody. But you add on top of that this arrogance that he's going to do this whether these people agree, whether these people consent, whether they want him to or not, because he knows better.
Mhm.
And that is a very frightening, a very frightening thought process.
Because it's like now we know Julian is a good man, but in this moment he was kind of playing God.
I feel like I need to also point out. I mean, yes, there were issues of informed consent. I totally agree. When he gets all jazzed, Jesse is like, "You should calm down. You've been awake for days." And he's like, "You think we should? You think we should tell her that what she has in her hand could be the possible cure or whatever?" She doesn't even know what she's giving to these other patients. They don't know. They haven't filled out an informed consent form. They haven't had any.
None of that.
They didn't fill out a
Yeah.
HIPAA form.
There's no assent. There's no someone who can explain, like, blah blah blah. And so in a way, it's like when clinical trial companies have patients who are on their deathbed and they try certain drugs in order to test them, so they don't have to go through the same phases when they work. And so they're experimental trials. When you have an experimental trials, the ethics change. And that's all I'm saying, is that when you have a sample of a population, which is just a sample, it's one city on this whole planet or whatever, it's not necessarily representative of the whole. And I also say that, like, I'm not defending him. I'm just saying that there's a framework here for, like, his intervention, which he clearly did not navigate as best as he could have. But there's also precedence for going into a population and doing this type of work. Now,
can I stop you for a second, maybe?
Yeah, please.
I cannot speak to ex-US, but I can speak to internal US. And in the United States, even if you are going to participate in one of those deathbed experimental clinical trials, and people do, and they try to get into them, and well, they should. I mean, this is how science works, right? And it's hope, and it's wonderful, and I'm all about scientific advancement. They are still required to get informed consent.
Oh, of course. Or assent. Someone who can assent, which means that you have a proxy or someone who they have their complete.
Yes. Which means somebody knows that what you're about to get shot up with.
Correct. Someone who can. It's almost like a midwife, like someone who. Midwife is the medical professional, the doula, someone who's there to monitor and defend your medical rights.
So, and there's none of that here. None of that.
I mean, Jadzia, I think, plays the role of that as the, and he talks to Ikoria about her caring compassion, and he's like, "Oh, you're giving an air of caring compassion. You're doing it right now." And he's coming off of this high of, like, he's sitting outside as the dog.
Y'all remember this picture? We're gonna come back to this.
Yeah.
The concerned Jadzia face.
There is a patronizing, sort of overarching arrogance, especially when he says, I was looking forward, I was really looking forward to coming back to the roundabout and telling Kira, what, you done with the nebula already? And that he could have just been done and whatever. And that is part of the magic of being part of a society where your medicines do magical things. And you're bringing fire to the natives. You're like, my intervention is, it's pedantic. My intervention is going to be, this is why you need me. You don't know enough. You can't give informed consent because you're children to me. And so I'm going to be the father figure. I'm going to be the one to come in and say, Daddy knows best. So I do understand that it's pedantic in a way.
I do have a question, though. If they were at the point where they claim the Federation is now, but they didn't have a cure or the knowledge for this virus because I guess it's,
because the Dominion is gnarly.
Yeah, because
the technical term.
Like, when it comes to genes and viruses and, the scientific, the Dominion has it hands down. Like, we've already established that. We've established that.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm wondering philosophically is, if this species, even though I admit that you can't do nothing without consent or knowledge or any of the sort, but as far as helping them in the first place, knowing where they were as a civilization, how does that relate to the Prime Directive? Because the Prime Directive
Yes.
really specifies whether they are a first time pre-warp or a second time pre-warp civilization. They never specify that because you could be refugees and then you can might claim asylum, federation, and a bunch of stuff like that. There's a lot of context that like a lot of what ifs in this situation. So that's
So
why
I
I'm asking the
think
question.
So the
Okay.
Janeway workaround is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, I mean,
right, but okay. So let's
okay,
answer.
so
most
we're here
questions.
now. We're
Let's get
here. Like we're here.
one. It's a good, but in all seriousness, it is a good question, and it's a question I have because lacking any real, because we never really get told what the actual text of the Prime Directive is.
Right. I hope there's a
never
book.
really like we never really see it. We never really hear about it. We know there's Federation jurisprudence on point, but we don't really know what that is. My guess is that it's simply because the way it's designed and the intent behind it, which is to preserve societal development absent superior godlike intervention. My assumption is that you take the society you find. Because, I mean, so think about this. A warp civilization comes to Earth and finds, after the fall of the final kingdom of Egypt and before modern times, and lands in Egypt. Based on the ancient Egyptians, they could be a much more advanced civilization than they are, and they're the inheritors of that situation of that, but they're not there anymore.
Interesting.
And so I really think that in that case, the Prime Directive would trigger. Janeway notwithstanding.
Right.
Janeway notwithstanding.
Okay, but if I may put another factor into this, because again, we're here now. We're here. So the Prime Directive helps civilizations not be interfered in their natural evolutionary process. Them being infected with this virus is not natural. And so now I can't help but think, okay, so I was thinking, what is the difference between Bashir and Data? Well, because Data saved the little girl from, and I guess you remember the debate.
I mean, he has two. Debate. He has pen pals, and then he has like the Doctor Who special that wasn't.
Well, I was speaking about pen pals, about the little girl, and Picard said we cannot turn our backs, and
he's Jaden.
And
right?
by the way, future episode, I loved that debate. I loved that conversation. I thought it was well written. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But all that what was going on their planet, that was natural. It was going to happen regardless. Period.
Interesting.
Okay? Whereas on this planet, the Dominion took it upon themselves and said, "Hey, boop," and then literally sent them back to the Stone Age.
Yeah, so Bashir doesn't know how the Dominion created the virus, though. You're trying to work it around. It could have been something that was already naturally occurring in their relation, just not at the levels that.
Right.
I don't even think that matters. I don't even think that matters from a legal perspective, because I think what the issue is that even in like a situation like this, the Prime Directive forbids Starfleet from involving itself in conflicts between existing indigenous populations.
Right.
And I really sort of think that the Dominion would sort of be, the smart move would be to call the Dominion an indigenous population. Now,
because we don't know what we don't know yet.
Right. And what they could do, theoretically, since we've seen from Michael Burnham an incredibly charitable interpretation of asylum laws, they could create the Teplin world as a protectorate, a Federation protectorate. But even then, the question is how far could they go?
I liken
because the Federation wouldn't actually have any legal standing to do anything because the Templins aren't Federation members. They're not even close to Federation territory. There are no Federation interests implicated other than Starfleet's God Savior complex. And it's squarely within Dominion territory. So at that point, the Federation would actually be infringing upon Dominion sovereignty, the way the Dominion was terrified would actually happen.
Manny would say,
Sorry.
girl, what the hell?
And Robin is making sure we're all awake for this. Well done.
The sheer hubris.
Hubris that my shelf could stay up with some mounting tape.
And I
thought you were kidding a bug or
something. This up because I love that there's never a conversation about sovereignty ever in this episode. We never touch on like how this is supposed to work, like who's the government, are you an external power coming and talking to like a lesser, a less powerful entity, governmental entity? But we don't talk about that because Bashir gives fucks. That's his zero fucks face, guys, right there.
At that point, he knew that what his decision was.
So what I would liken this to is, okay, you have a planet, it's in distress, you have a population that is dying, now naturally or naturally. There's an episode with Phlox in the Enterprise when he talks about the Menk, and he has the first argument with his captain about whether or not he should save that native population. He's like, one day my people's going to come up with some sort of pact of non-interference, whatever that eventually becomes a prime directive, which we have never iterated or itemized. We don't really know it, but we have an idea because it's intimate. But what I will say is it likens it to me in my head. Like, this is a very slow version. This is like a punishment from the Dominion,
right?
Where like a whole population. But a very fast version would be like the opening to Star Trek, when he's running away from the volcano and Spock is supposed to be like saving them, and it comes out. Now that's all at once. Like a native population, pre-war, is about to be completely destroyed. Do they have the right to come in and save them? There is a arrogance that life is better than no life, because in the natural life cycle of those people, that geological phenomenon is about to wipe out that population. So what I would argue is that Bashir's interference, however patronizing, however pedantic, is part of the Federation ideal to preserve life. Now, again, does he have a right to do that? And was the interference done in a way that was legal or ethical? And moral. Is it moral? It's different than is it ethical. So what I would say is that, I would say that the ramifications of his actions we can agree with. Do we justify those? It's difficult to say.
Because let's also talk about what's going to happen to Baby Zero, is what I'm going to call him. Let's talk about this. Because Baby Zero is the only baby at this point who is going to survive to a natural lifespan. And Baby Zero is going to survive to this natural lifespan in a destroyed world.
Yes.
Where there's no guarantee that he's or she, I don't actually know. I don't remember. is
baby boy.
Okay, thank you. We don't know if he's going to. There's not going to be a power structure. There's not going to be anything. He's going to grow up in almost a wasteland where everybody is dying. So think about this. There are whole generations missing on Teflon because they died out because of this.
This is the picture here of the conference with Tasha.
Yeah, this is the picture of like pre-quickening and post-quickening. Also, fun fact, the name of this particular episode and the designation they give to that is kind of also a nod to Ikoria's condition, because the quickening is an old medieval term for the moment when you can first feel your baby move. And that was generally considered to be the survival point.
Fascinating.
I know that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess the implication. So the implication would be that you're like, yeah, the race goes on and survives on and rebuilds itself,
and we know. I mean, we have practical examples of what happens when you have societies that lose entire generations, and it's not good.
So this baby is like the symbolism for like the survival points of our species.
Right.
And I mean, he's only one face.
But is it?
You know,
this kid, I mean, this kid is going to grow up. Now, I mean, he's going to have friends that are also going to grow up, but they are going to have to remake the society absent
and start from scratch.
Absent any information, absent any learning, absent any like voice of experience been there. And we know that, and we know what happens. It's not good. Because we've seen situations where wars have eliminated whole swaths of the population, and you end up with kids effectively coming up and having to take over the reins of government, and it just does not work. And it makes them ripe for the plucking and manipulation by greater powers. The United States and Russia did this a lot. During the 50s.
What I would argue is that there are people still on this planet after 200 years. People are still giving birth. They're just giving birth with the blight. So eventually you'll have people without blight and some people with blight. And then more and more frequency of the population will have no blight, and then they will slowly replace the people who do.
But I think you're thinking about this like an evolutionary biologist, right? Like, I mean, you're looking at this in a long term.
Yeah,
I'm trying to figure out how they live this
immediate situation. I mean, this baby's gonna suck. I mean, it's gonna suck for this kid.
Fine.
I mean, yeah, like that is literally the hope, right? Because we still don't even like that's the other thing. We still don't even know if this vaccine will work on the wider population.
We don't know.
Right?
We don't know.
It's just this one person.
Good point.
Look,
that's
I mean, that is a good point, but I'm willing to take it on faith.
It's implied that it's going.
By the way, disclaimer.
I think that's actually what the episode wants us to conclude.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Because the episode wants to give Bashir some sort of win.
It's like
some sort of win, because
he's taking a beating.
Ethically, you sucked, but morally, I guess we'll give you a pass.
Right.
But from a scientific perspective, my question is this: after 200 years, how are y'all still living?
This is the random events.
Are they? I mean, really? Like, I think we can call there's like a subsistence level going on, but I mean, we're not really talking about. We're not talking in terms of an actual functioning society at all.
There are people without.
So the Dominion's goal was not to kill them, but to revert them back to an earlier stage so they can control them.
No, the Dominion's goal was to make them suffer.
Well, I mean that too. That comes with the territory.
Right.
It's a cycle of
like,
I mean, that's why the blight is what it is. They wanted them to have a riminder of what the Dominion did to them, literally on their face.
Yeah,
they were an example.
Yeah,
it's awful. It is awful. And this is really one of the first times I think that we encounter just how ruthless the Dominion can be, and it's a really good harbinger for what's going to happen down the road.
Totally.
I mean, and this is also like the start of Bashir's mini story arc where he starts to have more and more and more kind of hubris, right? This is before he starts working with the other augments to end the Dominion War because they think
good
that,
point.
Oh no. We are going to get to Bashir's love life, y'all. No. We are going to get to Bashir's love life.
I'd like to point out that also Bashir, we don't know this. I mean, they backwrote this or whatever, but maybe part of the reason that he is so arrogant, let's combine a few things here, all right? He is a doctor who's supremely intelligent, but then also we backtrack and we realize that he's genetically manipulated and augmented.
Right.
This is also a part of that, even though he's like tamping it down so he doesn't get noticed. He is one of these Supermen.
I had that thought. I even brought it up for a couple episodes ago, way back when, for whatever we did. And there's two things at work here. Yes, we know in lore that he is genetically enhanced, and one could arguably say that at that point it broke through. He didn't give a crap. I'm going to do this whether people like it or not. Boom. Okay, continuity and sync, whatever. And then we got the other side of it where
he channeled his inner con.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Well,
It's never good.
Right.
It's never good.
But we got the other side of it where
channel Ricardo Montalban's pecs. Don't channel con.
I mean, this is the exact reason why augments don't exist, right?
Right.
They're illegal.
We'll speech about it, and we'll get into the moral implications about that another time. But then the other part is the writers. The writers at the time didn't even know that Julian would be genetically enhanced. So, which perspective are we gonna judge Julian for? From the perspective that he is human, or from the perspective that he is genetically enhanced, or does
no? And the thing about it is like I get that he's a Superman, and I get that he's got all of this going on, but like,
right,
with all of that, I mean, he might be slightly. I mean, he's a better human, but he's still human, and it's still arrogant to assume that he's going to be the one to find the answer. And this leads me into what I want to end this particular episode with, which is literally my favorite moment with Jadzia, which is when she calls him on his nonsense, because he's wallowing in self-pity here,
like the Grinch,
right? He's watched everyone die. He's had fruit thrown at him. Like Corey's dead. I mean, it's been a bad day for him. And he talks about, like, well, maybe it was arrogant to think that there could be a cure. And what I love her response is, it's even more arrogant to think that because you didn't find it, that there isn't one. I'm gonna need you, I'm gonna need you to calm down. Yeah. Because just because you didn't find it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how science works.
Does Julian have a savior complex then?
Yeah,
I mean, maybe some martyrdom. Like martyrdom, maybe. Like I don't know.
I don't even think it's martyrdom. Like I said at the beginning of this particular F2P episode, I really think that he's standing in as a metaphor for Western exceptionalism and paternalistic attitudes toward other cultures and other societies.
The swagger with which he walks through that village, saying, and then he has a Tory.
I think Sid Fidel's just performance in this episode is amazing.
Oh yeah, hands down. Because this is one of the earlier seasons, like before, when they before, yeah, four. Thank you. I was going to say before the gray suits. Was Julian still trying to find his footing in his character? Because they waited a little late to develop Julian. Yeah. They did. So would you say that this is like a Julian personal development episode, kind of like what we're seeing?
I really think that I think it is. I think it is. I think we are now officially post Creeper Julian as we ever get.
Yeah, and like I said, this is like the start of his mini story arc where his hubris becomes more and more drastic, which leads him to be curious in things like Section 31 and working with the other augments and thinking that he could be the one to end the Dominion War. Like, this is that start, right? It starts here, him trying to figure out a virus. Then or even it goes back even further when he tries to cure the Jem'Hadar's addiction to Ketracel White.
Ooh, and O'Brien let him have it. And then, to end it all, Julian kind of had it coming. If we're talking about the moral implications of it all, Julian had it coming when he was kidnapped for like 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just like...
at least they took it. I mean, at least isn't that the one where he ends up with Garrick too? Like, so at least they took his boyfriend.
I mean,
yeah,
I mean, he quite literally helped him come out the closet. So
I mean, But through this, he makes himself a target, right? Like, if you were the
Yes.
Dominion, wouldn't you want the guy that's trying to figure out how to
That
cure your super soldiers? Like,
that would make sense because it's like first you inoculate this whole civilization and then you go and mess with our soldiers. No, you need so that's probably you know what? Hey, we just did
so the lady founder back there is just like, oh, we got you now.
yeah.
This is just it's such an interesting episode, and I think actually Sid has actually said that this is one of his favorites, is because he got to, like, sort of act through, not even sort of, he got to act through the Shear's experience of failure.
Right.
So what I would put on you is given the planet that they encounter and the distress call that they take.
Do I need to put this on like a hat?
Yes. What would be is it the way he did it that's wrong, but his actual actions are okay?
It would be the way he did it.
Done?
It would be the way he did it, because it's like, I understand, oh, go away, but I'm like, but you called me here. That I received that. That they received the signal, which is pretty much their own personal galactic SOS
for 200 years for a people.
Well,
that's dead.
hey,
for society that's dead.
What, they don't know that. They don't know that.
I think it was left on, and Dravine even mentioned, he's like, many have come with their elixirs promising blah 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 for a coat or whatever, and people were suspicious because apparently this has happened often where they've been promised things, and I think that's also part of the punishment, is that the Dominion wanted people to come to this planet and try to cure it.
False hope.
Ooh.
A lot of
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Suffer.
Ooh, Manny, you just enriched my nightmares.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's
wait. I have a sign for this. I have a sign for this.
But I think like a good what
if.
I'm sorry. I don't mean, but yes, I think that was
evil.
part of it.
That is weapons grade evil.
Yeah.
Right there.
Dominion nightmares, man. Dominion nightmares.
They're terrible.
So I think, what do you do? You come across this planet. You're used to. Let's go back to the Menk or whatever, right? That was an evolutionary thing. This is a curable, treatable virus.
I think the first thing you do is you do not make promises.
Definitely don't make promises you cannot keep.
I think step one is,
or any promises at all,
because it doesn't matter. Like, you cannot say, hey, I'm going to cure whatever. Like, that's just not, you can't do that.
What if, like in Insurrection, where he has a duck blind and it's phased out and they go into the population and they take the samples and they do stuff without consent? Would that have been better for him to, like, we're going to go into the mountain, we're going to hide.
I don't like that.
We're going to surreptitiously take a bunch of samples and cure this without anyone's help.
We the Enterprise didn't learn their lesson from the first time they got caught. Like, with Riker and all that. Like, they didn't learn their lesson. So
no, I don't like that. I don't like that either. Because again, that runs into very real consent issues, and we're talking about sentient beings.
Okay,
that have a right to bodily autonomy.
Well, is there a difference between observing up close and Julian just okay, like, spending like months in a holographic mountain is very different than Julian responding to a distress call that he does not know has been going for 200 years.
That's an ongoing anthropological thing, correct? This is an emergency medical situation. So given that it's
but is it though? But is it?
We know because we know how it ends. But initially, let's ask this question before we go.
Well, who gets to decide that it's an emergency situation?
Julian.
Does he? Does he really? Or do the people who are suffering from the blight get to decide?
In medical situations, the chief medical officer has superiority over the commanding officer.
That's within the Federation.
That's within the Federation, and that's
within the larger.
And that's within an established hierarchy to which everyone has consented. Like,
right.
That's not. By signing up effectively, like, you agree to this.
Right.
The tablet didn't do that.
But just like we don't know at the time that Julian is genetically enhanced, Julian doesn't know that message has been going on for 200 years.
Except that, like, within 5 minutes of the episode actually starting, Jadzia is like, "Oh yeah,
that's true. It's true."
He blanked that out of his head. Okay, look.
You cannot pick and choose your facts. No. Angry Jadzia facing you.
Oh Lord.
I think the best way
I need a shirt with her face on it, man. Like,
wait, Robin, what?
I was gonna say, I think going back to Manny's question, what do you do? I think the best way to situation, it wouldn't have made it an interesting episode of Star Trek, but would have just been to listen to the people, right? It's a difference than him coming down, seeing the blight and giving them pain medication and saying like, this will help your pain, rather than trying to, cure their incurable disease. Like, that's
I think it's really interesting. Situation. And I think it's really interesting that this is the story we get in 90s Trek, and then flash forward to 2021 and we get the examples.
Woo! Consent issues?
So what Burnham does is that Burnham recognizes Felix's agency. And Felix and she basically says to Buck, we can't take Felix if he wants to die this way and die here.
It's a medical decision. Yeah.
He gets to make that choice. Don't the template get the same right?
You're absolutely right. I agree.
You got it, Marie.
That's a good point.
So, and on that extremely happy note,
that Marie has successfully made her point on.
No, I mean, I was thinking about, like, dead Michael Grey Eyes, but like, all right, yeah. No.
Oh my God.
Woo for me. Woo. This is not the fight I wanted to win. This is not the fight I wanted to win, guys.
This is better than HBO. My bad, Paramount Plus.
Watch it, you're gonna get a great strike.
Man, I've been let my Netflix die. I've been let my Netflix die when they took all that off. I was like, oh, okay, bye.
Peace. So, all right, do we have any final thoughts? Anything we want to sum up here?
It's one of my favorite episodes in DS9. I thought it was a roller coaster, especially as the medical side of things was played out. The idea of the ethics of what it is to have an intervention on a population fascinates me, because you have the individual and you have the population. Can a population consent if they've been given so much time and space to suffer? Can they even be told what to think at that point? There's a defeatist attitude that he comes to sort of pedantically save the day. And what interests me about this whole episode also, and the why I wanted to participate in this conversation, is the perspective that you guys had, for me, I never really thought about. And so having explored that, I was really enjoying the way that you guys interpreted those things, because I've never interpreted it that way, not once. I sympathized with the medical character, and I wanted to do more myself. I try to be a good white hat, kind of like Dr. Lenz or whatever, but realizing also later that there was no consent on this part, and the swagger with which he walked through that village and said, this is what I believe, and the defeatist swagger at the end, when he's trudging through
the road to hell, man. The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
And does it mean that it's justified? Because in the end, what if he hadn't found something? So there's a lot of aspects of this. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this.
No, thank you for being here.
Oh, it was good. Sorry, my thing dropped. I had to switch.
Man, you missed it, but mine dropped too.
Oh yeah.
Oh, for real?
You missed it.
This happened a few times.
Frozen for the last half an hour. You guys have just.
I think this episode of FTP has in fact been cursed, right? Our internet apparently has the template blight and quickened a few times.
Final thoughts for me is that, on top of the fact that I actually appreciate this particular episode's interchanging dialogue between us, because we really put in some different thoughts, and I really appreciated that. As far as my thoughts on Julian, yeah, it's definitely, I agree. It's a personal development episode. I believe that he had a moment when he had, where's his face at? Where's his face? Come on, Julian. I know, I got you. Here it is.
Oh, look,
When he had this moment in his head, his genetically enhanced head, he's thinking, one person is very smart. A whole group of people together are stupid. Therefore, I'm going to make the decision for them.
Yeah.
At that moment,
that's a dangerous path to walk.
It's a very dangerous path, and it cost him the next season. It cost him, and he had to learn it. And his whole character changed, and he became like this depressive, damn near mute character up until he met Ezri. So, like,
oh man,
I'm just calling it as I see it. Like,
I have real thoughts
in his head, and he said, in his head, logically speaking, this is the closest thing he'll ever get to Dax. So it's just like, you know what? Hell, I said it. And we
wow. At the
there.
end, this went sideways, man.
We're not
so much
either.
That was a left turn I was not expecting you to take, Will.
Right?
I'm just
right?
telling you,
we just missed Albuquerque.
I know we 5 minutes over, but baby, do not let the cat out the box when it comes to William Wesley Walker. No, like, pop. Like, honestly, I'm just telling you, he's settled.
All right, wrap it up. Well, Robin's gonna have her final thoughts too.
Yeah.
So for this episode, I think what interests me the most is something that I thought of literally as we were talking, which was like, this is literally like the start of that storyline for Bashir, where he gets more hubristic, right? And putting my tinfoil hat, Section 31, it's all connected, theory head on. I like the idea that some of this hubris that, you know, is in Bashir because he's an augment is not because Bashir is human, even though he is, but because it is an augment, because the rest of the augments that we see in DS9 share this level of hubris and share this level of, well, we're just going to do it because we're smart and we think it's the right thing to do. Snap, crackle, pop. On does the same thing, etc., etc., etc. So
congratulations, you have just forever changed my relationship with Rice Krispies.
You're welcome.
Marie, any final thoughts?
Yes.
No, actually, I think I have run my mouth enough. However, to our lovely audience and anybody watching this video, please remember to like, subscribe, and follow us on all of our social media channels. Let us know if you want to see something else in particular done. Check out all of the other wonderful content created by Trucker's Delight, and we certainly have appreciated your attention. Stay tuned. Our next episode, we are going to move into a feminist arc, and we're going to start with Turnabout Intruder. So stay delighted in Trek, guys.
I just want to talk to her. No, I just want to talk to her. Like I heard, like what I think Robin said. I think she wanted to pull her hands back.
She wanted to do a bitch.
No, she wanted to.
Bitch.
So if you can't tell, they have thoughts about Discovery.
Look, here's the thing. Cancel culture might get everyone else, but they won't come for me in this subject. If you are our allies, we are not talking to you. We are not talking to you. This does not... Pop. Okay? We're not talking to you. Stop trying to take our shit and make it your goddamn business. It ain't got nothing to do with you. It ain't got nothing to do with you. Did I say that? No. I said Atlas and Cardassian. If you are neither in that category, go to another show.